Hello, my most amazing and awesome artists. Today we're going back to blind contour, continuous line drawing. Yes, that drawing where you couldn't look because you were using a drawing shield to draw your self-portrait. It was very tricky. It is a challenge, especially keeping it all one line. Now, the reason it was so important to keep your drawing all one line and very big is because if you were to bunch it all up, say you were really drawing the right thing, you got eyebrows, eyes, nose, mouth, everything in, but maybe you weren't moving around your paper enough and it turned out like scribble scrabble. Don't get too frustrated. Just know that you might be doing the wrong thing. It's just going to look like you are doing the wrong thing if you're doing it all in one space and it all looks like scribble scrabble. So please make sure that you're really moving your arm around trying to make these big. So today you're going to finish on your big piece of paper, getting as many continuous line, meaning one line, blind contour drawings. You can take off your shield if you feel like you won't cheat, meaning that you're not going to draw your best picture of yourself from your memory, but you're going to follow the rules and maybe look down at your paper every once in a while, but mainly look in the mirror. It's okay if you take off the shield just to make sure that you're drawing big enough, all one line, and get your eyebrows, eyes, nose, mouth, and maybe an ear or two in. That's the most important thing. Today, we're going to be choosing one of your best continuous line blind contour drawings to create into a sculpture. You want to be able to trace this drawing with your finger clearly. If it's too hard to trace and gets all bunched up in a bunch of lines, maybe you included your hair and it was just really complicated, then it's going to be very difficult to make out of wire. You want to pick the one that is easiest to trace the start and the end point with your finger. Like a maze. If you can follow that maze, then that's great. That's a good one to make out of wire. Choose your favorite, maybe put a star by the one that you're going to make out of wire. Now today, we need to measure how much wire you get. Wire is very expensive. It's made out of metal and it's also sharp. So we need to make sure that I'm giving out just the right amount and taking precaution where we need to. So first, we need to start with yarn. You are going to use a piece of yarn to measure your drawing. Now, the yarn doesn't stay like wire does because yarn doesn't bend. So what you'll have to do is you'll have to hold it as you go, step by step, line by line, and yes, it will start to move. It's not going to stay there. Of course, look at my nose. It became a Squidward nose. But what I do is I start to shape it and bend it just to make sure that that line is enough wire for me. So whenever I get to the end of my drawing and I trace it with the yarn, I'm going to cut it right where it ended. That's going to be the measurement for how much wire you need. When you have your yarn and your name's on the end of it, of course, then you'll come up to me, I'll measure your yarn, and I will cut you that much wire for your sculpture. Now, when you do get your wire from me, you're going to need to put your name on a little piece of tape. There are going to be 2 pieces of tape on your wire, one at each end to protect you from the pokey wire. It is sharp, so please make sure to leave that piece of tape on there and write your name and class code in Sharpie on it. That way, we don't lose it. Then I'm going to start to bend it to fit my drawing. So I'm tracing my blind contour drawing with the wire. I'm doing this so that I can get a good idea of how this sculpture will look. Wire is very strong because it's made out of metal, so it is going to take a lot of bending to really get this today. When I want to go on a curve or a pointy edge, I have to bend it back and forth to really get it to go. Also, my wire is going to be coiled up so that it's not flinging every which way, hitting my neighbors. So I'm just taking out the wire as I need it, tracing, holding it down with my left hand or my hand that don't know how to draw, my non-dominant hand, as I'm moving along, bending and tracing that wire. Now, if it is a little bit difficult to trace your drawing, you can use your drawing as a guide and just have an idea because you're making it bigger than your drawing. That would be called proportions if you're taking something smaller and turning it into something bigger. But it is much easier just to trace the drawing that you have. That's why I made you draw it so big and I kept saying draw bigger, because it's going to be way easier to trace as long as it's big. And whenever I get to a point, I bend it back and forth. Whenever I get to a curvy or swirly line, I go around. I have to bend that wire around. It's going to take a lot of movement. If you notice, I'm picking it up off the page almost every turn that I make. It's going to take a lot of bending to get this, but it's going to look awesome when it's done. If you have a lot of extra wire, you can make something that you didn't have in your drawing, say like a neck or an ear or a bow in your hair or just hair at all if you didn't have hair. If you have extra wire, that's great. If you don't, then it's okay if you don't have enough. As long as you've got the most important parts of this abstract drawing, then we're good to go. When you're done bending your wire, you're going to put it in a plastic bag with your name on it. Keep in mind though, the more that you play with this wire, the more that it gets harder to do. So if you bend it and start doing it, and then you try to redo it or you undo it, just like when you're using pencil on a paper, it's very hard to erase. So just like that, it's hard to erase what you've done with wire. It's going to always have that bend in it, so make sure you really take your time the first time. All right, artists, have an awesome time today, and make sure to put them in your bags with your name on them when you're done.